Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum.
Welcome back to another episode of the Red Text Podcast. I'm your co-host Ry, aka the Mestizo Mystic.
And my name is Voga, and I am Voga Illumisente on Instagram. Ry, oh my god, how are you?
I'm good. I'm about to start school this weekend, so life's gonna be crazy hectic again, which I'm also super excited for because these classes that I'm taking to train to be a therapist are forcibly making me become so much more introspective and know myself in ways I've never explored yet, which in turn affects my spiritual growth like incrementally. So I'm really excited and anxious, but
Yeah.
and I'm also going to be taking a social media hiatus, which I'm really excited. So by the time
Mm-hmm.
this episode's airing, everyone will probably know that I'm not really on social media anymore, and I'll have boundaries about that. Like I'm gonna be on the weekends, but like limit myself to like an hour of screen time on those days. And I think what I'm gonna try to do is like queue posts to just automatically post, so I don't have to be on Instagram. So just trying to focus on school, better myself, form better habits. So it's sad because I love the community that we formed, so I won't be as actively engaging with it. But on the flip side, your girl's got to take care of herself.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. You've done this before where you've kind of you've kind of left social media for a while, and you said it did a really good job. Or you said it did wonders for you, yeah?
It was funny. Yeah, that first time, I think that was like near the very tail end of 2021. I intended just to go 2 weeks, and then like after the third or fourth day, I just kept not using it, and then I hit like a whole month or month and a half where I'm like, oh wow, I did not mean to go this long, and it felt great. And I don't know if you've tried to do a social media cleanse, but for me, it's so embarrassing the first handful of days because you realize how much we've like Pavloved ourselves. Like I would reach for my phone in spare moments of time trying to open the apps that I deleted, just like automatically, like out of habit. And I would pick up my phone and see that it's not on my phone and be like, oh shit, like that's how conditioned we are to these fucking dopamine fueling constructions. But
Yeah. Uh,
yeah.
I've never actually done any sort of purge. I know that I've done like some sort of like I've limited myself to how much time I spend in front of the screen, because I've noticed that the more time I spend in front of the screen, the more anxious and depressed I am.
Mm,
So I know that because there's a big part of what I do that isn't my day job exists online. So a part of me is it's difficult for me to like really detach myself from it. So like things that are absolutely necessary, especially when it comes to promoting the podcast, promoting the episodes, talking to people on being on the podcast, or my divination work that I do, my psychic work that I do, because I am a professional psychic and I do book online. It is tough for me to kind of disconnect from the online space, and also the events that I do, everything is promoted online, you know what I mean?
totally.
um but like it's the doom scrolling that I need to like get better at, because all I do is like, if it's not Instagram, then it's TikTok. It's
Oh
like
god,
I'm
don't even
just
get me started on TikTok.
to the point to where I'm just like completely mind numb,
Mhm.
from what I'm like. It's just aimless and like just like I feel like a zombie, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, I've actively, tried to limit my time online, but I've never really like purged myself completely of it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like a really good idea for us to kind of do that every once in a while. And I know, because now you're going to ask me how I am. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to jump into it. Because like this week I have actually had a really great week, and a lot of it was spent online because we were promoting this season of the podcast. So like we released like the logo of the new logo, which is absolutely stunning.
So beautiful.
I'm getting such great feedback from folks who love the logo. That promo video that I did, which, if I do say so myself, was so cunt.
It
I
was. It was very cunt.
thank you so much. I worked a couple of hours on it, and I love the way it came out. I think it really encompasses like our vibe now. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And you know me, I love the spook. I love the gook. I love all that good stuff.
I love the clip that you put on there of like Jesus kind of like patting
Yeah.
his lap for a disciple to come. I'm like, ooh, this is like this is a little sexual.
I know I did that on purpose. I was like, kneel before me. You know what I mean? I'm just like, it was just so coont. And then like the one where like Jesus taking off his hood, like his whatever you would call it, but whatever was on his head, and it was just so, it was so like flourishy. You know what I mean? So I was just
Yeah.
like, I need to put that in there. It's so queer. Yeah. So like, I don't know, I just had just seeing everyone's feedback, and then also I was asking folks on our Instagram, like, what do they want to hear, and everyone's throwing some really great comments out there and really great topics out there. So like, there's a good thing about being on social media, and not so great things about being on social media, which is actually a great segue into the topic today. How you kind of have to find a balance between the two. There are
Hmm.
good things and there are good things and bad things between um you know everything in life. And I think it's really important for us to not bypass the bad things just because they're bad. I think it's also a good idea
Hmm.
for us to find a balance and see where something like social media can be a really useful tool, which is what I try to use it as much as I possibly can. It's also very entertaining, obviously, and
Totally.
I think it being a tool of entertainment has its own value. But with that said, right, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, it's this whole topic's kind of like on the flow or on the energy of like two sides of the same coin. But we'll be talking about spiritual bypassing as well as the importance of integrating both light and dark. Because I know when I first started my spiritual practice, when it was very new agey, when I
Mm-hmm.
began, you hear so much about the threefold law, or adding to your spells like "and it harm none." Just like these ways of like trying to bypass any way, shape, or form of doing harm or believing that causing harm is going to come back to you. And in a sense, it can, but I also feel that it gets perpetuated in this fear mongering sense of like, you can't do curses or hexes or anything baneful because that's just bad. And I feel like it's a disservice, because I feel like as practitioners, as spiritual workers, you need to know, you don't necessarily have to dabble in it 24/7, but you need to know how to work with the baneful to understand how to undo it and work with the light side of that same coin. And that's a lesson I've learned over definitely the last 2 years. And so I'm looking forward to talking about it with you, because I know you've definitely dived into baneful work. I'm working on something baneful myself right now, and
Yeah.
I won't speak to it, but it's definitely, I'm looking forward to it, because I don't do baneful stuff too often, but when I do, like, it always comes out cunt. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also if you flip what you just said on its head and say, like, the whole threefold law, what you put out there comes back to you. Like, okay, so if you put out good, then you will receive good. I'm like, what makes you think that you're entitled to that? You know what I mean? Like, what makes you think that
Hmm.
you've earned that? There's no structure in regards to how magic works, and that's why it's one, dangerous to work with sometimes, and why it's also very enlightening and surprising sometimes, because sometimes blessings come without you even knowing it,
Yes.
without you actually understanding why it happened. um, but at the same time, working within the baneful aspect, or within like the baneful or darker currents of magic, it's it's necessary sometimes. When we talk about harm, um like, what does that actually mean? What does it mean to harm someone, or what does it mean to bless someone? A big part of excuse me, a big part of what I do, and a big part of a word that I use a lot in my spell work and my prayers is warrant. Like, what is warranted? What is something that is supposed to be and what is not supposed to be? So let's say, for example, with the baneful work, or the more darker workings that I do, is it warranted? Is it something that, if I put the work out there, is it something that uh, would work because it's something that I should be doing, or um, is what I'm giving out, um, equal or more than what I received? Also, who cares? Like, what if like someone did a jinx on me and it gave me a really bad day, and then I infiltrate their finances and drown their bank account?
Mm-hmm.
Then I did what I was supposed to do.
The scales are being
The
balanced.
scales in some way are being balanced somewhere. So you know I I I I I really don't believe that there is a structure when it comes to um what you can or can't do when it comes to your magic. I think that we should be able to, and we should have the freedom and the grace to um practice, in all currents, in all, because there's magic in I mean, there's power in every aspect of what we do, whether it be within, lighter, more frilly, lovey-dovey magic, which exists and I do it, and something that's more dangerous and dirty and murky and quote unquote harmful. So it's this like, I want to really unpack what it means to be harmful. What does harmful mean? you
Mm-hmm.
know
And even being too positive can be harmful.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a huge part of the magical community is just toxic positivity.
Yeah, exactly. Or just like good vibes only.
Yeah, and it really puts people in a bad space, because that's the- you know dark and light exist in life. you it's impossible for you to avoid either of them. So you'd be like what Ry said, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you don't know how to work within both currents.
Hmm. I recently just finished reading this fantastic book that is something I would always start and never finish. And I finally finished it, called "Honoring Your Ancestors: A Guide to Ancestral Veneration" by, I'm gonna butcher her name. Her first name's Mallory. Her last name I think is Vaudois or Vaudois, and she gives a great definition of spiritual bypassing in her book, where she's talking about how we can't hide trauma and ignoring it doesn't make it disappear, and specifically in terms of ancestral veneration and ancestral trauma here, and that we're going to still be end up haunted by the past even if no one tells us about it, and because our bodies remember, and so we have to acknowledge it at one point or another. And she says, I frequently see something called spiritual bypassing. The term was first introduced in the early 1980s by John Wellwood, who was a Buddhist teacher and psychotherapist, who, fun fact, my therapist studied under. um, and John Wellwood defined it as a tendency to use spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep or avoid facing unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, and unfinished developmental tasks. Or in other words, it's shifting the conversation to talk about love and light whenever it starts to get a little too real. And that really, I was very much a spiritual bypasser in the beginning of my practice, because I
Hmm.
thought that if I have one negative thought, that suddenly it's going to manifest into my reality. Because early on, I can't speak generally for everyone, but early on in my practice, when I'm reading about manifestation, you're reading these teachings that are telling you, oh, be careful what you think, because the thing you think is going to come into your reality. So I'm like, oh man, I can't be anxious, I can't be depressed, I can't focus on these bad thoughts, because then it's going to happen. And that's so horrible, because if there's anything I've learned both as a human and as a therapist in training, it's that you need to acknowledge and fully embody and let these quote unquote negative emotions be processed and flow through you in order to process it fully. Otherwise, it's going to come back up in one shape, way, or form later down the road. So by really ignoring it, you're really just doing yourself a disservice, and even a form of harm to yourself. And so that I see this often in social media, in the spiritual community particularly, and I just want to, that's why I'm so excited to talk about this with you today, because we can't have one without the other. We can't have the light without the dark, and vice versa.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's one, extremely immature to ignore bad things in your life, because it's kind of like those. I'm not want to deal with it. I don't want to deal
Hmm.
with it because it makes me feel uncomfortable. Where's the growth there? Where's the growth? Because like if you're just dealing with all the great things in your life, then okay, great. Your life is great, whatever. But your life isn't as great as you think it is. Because the reason everything is going to come back, it's going to manifest itself in some way where it's going to haunt you in some way, and that's why that's the that's the curse of spiritual bypassing, is something makes you feel uncomfortable and you decide to ignore it because it exists. It's part of life. That's the that's the disservice you're doing to yourself. So in talking about that, like, how do you incorporate light and dark into your practice? Like, what does that look like to you?
uh Thank God for my therapist, because like I said, she's helped me so much to tune into my body when these things happen, which has helped me process these more. Oh, God, I'm trying to think of an alternative to the word negative, because these emotions aren't negative, but they're just difficult. They're difficult emotions to deal with, such as depression, anxiety, sadness, despair, anything like that. So for me, it's my biggest lesson that I learned in 2022 is learning how to surrender and to stop fighting against things that are coming up in my life, because the more I fight and the more that I do nothing but resist, the more it just hurts. And the
Mm-hmm.
more that it doesn't process or heal, the more I'm just postponing the potential healing that there is. So learning
Right.
how to surrender and sit with these emotions. And I'm going to tell y'all, it's not easy. It's fucking scary and it
Mm-hmm.
hurts, but there's no way to get past that hurt or whatever difficult feeling that you're going through unless you really sit there with it and stare it in the face and accept it.
Right.
So surrendering and acceptance are two things I've learned a lot this last year, especially while praying the rosary. I feel like Our Lady of Sorrows has helped with that,
Mm-hmm.
and Santa Muerte. Like when you work with the current energies of, or the energy currents of death, whether that's Santa Muerte or otherwise, you're gonna be confronting a lot of shit, because death energy is going to be chopping a lot of shit out of your life that you don't need. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
resisting that destruction, I can just tell you right now, you are going to not have a good time, because you don't get to tell death what she does and doesn't get to take from you. So that was the biggest way I learned how to better work with these emotions, is through acceptance and surrender. Whatever will be, and just fighting it's going to make it worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really important to understand what those currents feel like, um, especially if you are within, you are within some sort of magical practice or some sort of magical tradition, because you have to also learn how to defend yourself when it comes to these things. Because if these things can also be thrown at you, these things can be uh, like, how do you deal with generational trauma?
Hmm.
When you don't actually say hi to it and, like, get familiar with it, and being more comfortable in your discomfort is something that I say all the time, because I think it's so important to understand what it feels like to be uncomfortable and why, because that's how you break it down, that's how you unpack it, and that's also how you heal from it. That's how you bring yourself out of it. And I love this idea that you're putting out here about acceptance and surrender. Is like, there are things that we can't control, but they're how we deal with it and how we move on from it, we can.
Hmm.
So surrender to the things that you can't control. Accept the things that happen to you as things that happen to you, but also at the same time do the work so things like that don't happen again. um and this sounds so like, who am I to say, like I'm just standing on a soapbox talking about, like, you can cure your depression. That's not what I'm talking about, because that's definitely not necessarily true. But at the same time, there are things that you can do when working within the currents of light and dark to help cope with everyday life. And because everyday life, like I said, is both light and dark, so being comfortable and understanding what these currents feel like is probably the best way in my current practice and the way that I work, to overcome those moments of grief, those moments of depression, those moments of high anxiety. Um, so, like, for example, like what you said, like working with the darker aspects of Mary, which is something that I've really honed in within the last year, especially within Our Lady of Sorrows. And I work with, I've said this before, I work with Our Lady of Sorrows much differently than other people. You know, I see Our Lady of Sorrows as not necessarily the person who softens people's hearts, but someone who is, um, which I think is true. Like that's still an aspect that is necessary. But I see the Our Lady of Sorrows as someone who's out for blood, and I who want to see the people who made Christ suffer in return. That's how I see her, and that's how I work with her, and that's how I address her. And I do use that aspect of Mary in certain work. Um, I have used that darker aspect of Mary in a curse rite that I did last year, and it was very effective. I've used that aspect of Mary in regards to banishing some generational trauma that I've had to deal with within the last couple of months. I've had to use my work with and my relationship with Our Lady of Sorrows, with my relationship with some people that I've known for a very long time, and in that way, I've actually used Our Lady of Sorrows to soften their hearts, to kind of open their minds and bring forth a little bit of clarity and a little bit of more understanding. So, but these are just ways that I understand these currents. These are the ways that I understand the Our Lady, and this is a very effective way that I've cultivated a relationship with her. And then on the other side of it, Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal is someone that I work very closely with. That aspect of Mary is someone who is more on the other side of the coin. Is someone who that's the lady who's more gracious and a lot less vengeful, much more. This is the love and light Mary, right? This is the one. This is the Mary that wants to see miracles and wants to grant wishes. That's how I see Miraculous Medal Mary, is the one who wants to grant wishes. So I mean, it's in the name, miraculous. It's the
Hmm.
one who wants to bring forth the good things in your life, and the Miraculous Medal. Like I've told you that story before, how the Miraculous Medal is very important to me, especially from that encounter I had when I did that pilgrimage last year, or 2 years ago. Oh my gosh, 2 years ago now. uh,
God.
oh no, a year and a half ago. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So the Miraculous Medal is something that made the relationship I had with Mary very concrete. So and that is the lighter side of my practice, is working with them,
Hmm.
with Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal. um so yeah, so it's really, that duality is so important. That duality is really important, because there are times where I don't see those. I mean, the aspect is, yes, the it is Our Lady. It is the same person. It is part of her life, right? It's part of her story. But there are times where I see them as different people, different energies, different entities, if you will, because it's necessary. It's like I have to separate Mary from her Miraculous Medal aspect, because I'm working with a really dark energy, you know
Hmm.
and sometimes, if the Our Lady of Sorrows doesn't work, for this is just me personally, okay, this is me coming with my own witchcraft side of my practice, is that sometimes if Mary doesn't work, I need to go somewhere else. I need to kind of venture out into more earthly spirits, much more traditional, magical spirits that you find on the earth, and I detach myself from that aspect, because I know that this is not the work that she wants to do for me.
Hmm.
So it's really important to understand what that means, what that duality means to you, and who you're looking to do that work.
Yeah, and this is why spiritual hygiene is also so important, because like sometimes I'll come home from work or just being out and about and be in a funk for no fucking reason, but I'll do kind of like a spiritual pass, as I was taught, which like I'll put some Florida water in my hands and then kind of just go over my entire aura with it and feel better. But I only know that I'm feeling bad because I've sat with those emotions and I know what these emotions feel like. Like, oh, I don't feel right now. Like, I'm feeling really sad. I'm feeling really anxious, and there's no known source or cause. And not to say that can't be, a mental disorder or mental illness that you might be going through, but if you know that it's not and that you're just kind of feeling that way out of nowhere, like, it could be a spiritual cause. It could just be picking up spiritual dirt or spiritual miasma from the environments and people around you. But you have to be able to tune into your body and recognize when you're feeling off, and you can only do that if you're willing to confront those difficult emotions. If you start feeling bad and you just immediately push that away of like, oh, no, I have to feel good, you're kind of ignoring like that could be your court or your guides telling you like, hey, like, I think you need a spiritual cleanse through the use of these kind of, quote unquote difficult or negative emotions unrising out of nowhere in your body. And it just also improves your magic so much because it's going to push you to, for me at least, I rituals are my source of rituals are the way that I heal myself and others. And so, like, white fire limpias, for example, which you can learn more about in Erica Buenaflor's book, Cleansing Rites of Curanderismo. And in the book, she shows you how to do a white fire limpia, which includes a pot and some herbs, rubbing alcohol, Epsom salts and shit like that, and setting shit on fire, which I fucking love fire. And so, like, it
Same.
includes, yeah. And so part of the white fire limpia is speaking out loud, like, what you're going through, what it is you're trying to release and get rid of. And then as you light it on fire and it's burning, you then feed it the herbs and speak what you're trying to bring in to replace what you're letting go of. And so really, to really have an effective white fire limpia, you need to be introspective. You need to understand what you're going through, what you're suffering from, and speak that through vibration into that space, so you can through ritual, get rid of it, and then also acknowledge what you want to replace that with. So the more you integrate those darker, more difficult sides of yourself, of your psyche, of your personality, of your emotions, the more you can work with them and heal them and transmute them.
Absolutely. I mean, when I'm doing a working that requires a lot of emotion, especially if someone really fucked me over, you need that rage.
Yes.
You need that anger. You need those feelings. They're necessary. And it's really important for you to be okay with feeling those feelings when you're doing this work, because those are the currents that you're working with. That is what you're trying to do. You're trying to throw it back. Even something as simple as a reversal, just sending something back, that requires some sort of, that's not a love and light kind of a spell.
No, I'd be pissed off. I mean, like, get this fucking shit off of me. Like, this isn't my
Exactly.
shit.
It's like someone throws a drink in my face, I'm gonna throw a drink back in their face. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna, thank you so much for drinking that. That means for throwing that drink in my, you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, you gotta fight fire with fire. You can't fight fire with love.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense to me, even though there's a lot of people out there who will tell you differently. And I'm going to say right now that it's really important for you to discern your teachers and also beware of false prophets.
Yeah, and love yourself through standing up for yourself and sending that shit back. Because again,
Absolutely.
balancing the scales. That wasn't your shit to deal with if someone's throwing something at you, be it spell work or a drink.
Absolutely. That's 100% right. And, to be totally honest with you, and this might just be UPG talking, your spirits want you to fight fucking back. I think they want to fight back. You know what I mean? They're not there they're there to defend you. You know what I mean? That they're there to make sure that you're doing okay. They helped you through all of the things that, helped you heal throughout your life. They want to make sure you stay that way. You know what I mean? So if people are going to be fucking with those things, then um, make sure you're fighting back. Make sure you stand up for yourself. Make sure that you stand your ground.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So right, just for shits and giggles, I think it's gonna be really fun. It's like, what kind of workings do you do when you're not in such a love and light kind of a mood?
Ooh, I can count on one hand the amount of baneful workings I've done. And my one of the very few TikToks I made, you can see part of the process I did of a baneful working. I think that's the very first person I ever froze, or one of the first few people I ever froze and threw in the freezer. And it was because at the time my friend, I think it was like her manager or coworker, and my friend's Filipina, and this coworker or manager of theirs is a white woman. just like racially charged. I can't remember if it was like comments or just it was something racial, and I'm like, no. First of all, my friend's Filipino, so I'm like, kapwa community. But secondly, I'm like, I'm not gonna let this pass, and so I put that cunt in the freezer, and I'm not gonna say it was my working or not, but like then I heard she got in a car accident, so you know, and then someone that I dated for a little bit, like very, very short, broke my heart and did me very, very dirty. And I'm not going to blame myself. There were red flags and I had rose colored glasses on, so I didn't pay attention to them because, the red just matched. And
but to your defense, he was very pretty.
sure, but also very pretty dumb for crossing me. And so,
Right.
that was the first person I ever put in a jar. I pissed in that jar. I filled it with disgusting shit. Not actual shit, but I will next time. And I left it behind.
You should have.
Yeah, and I left it behind my toilet because I wanted that current, like that actual shit current, disgusting filth energy to constantly surround it, and so that I knew they were suffering.
Right.
And I remember the candle I burnt on top of it. The flame on that was so tall when I was kind of like consecrating that jar. And so yeah, and going back to what you mentioned earlier, Voga, like I was channeling all these emotions in the midst of these workings. That person that I cursed, or I guess hexed on behalf of my friend, like I was putting that anger, both my friend's anger and my anger of like, how dare this person fucking treat my friend like this, as I'm doing the working. And then when I'm putting that I guess quote unquote X in a jar, I was not only just putting that sorrow that they made me feel, but also like, wow, they really fucked me over, and putting that angst and energy into that jar as I'm putting them in a fucking jar and covering them in my piss and not in the kink way. And so those are what I've done so far. I've put a handful of other people in the freezer as well, which is so simple and yet so effective. And then what I'm planning right now, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do, but I know that I'm using a specific candle that I got from the Botanica that I've been saving for quite some time, and some materia that I've either bought or been gifted from several witch friends, and I know it's going to be fucking potent. Um, so it's folk magic. Do what you can with what you have. Like I don't think I had a jar when I was hexing my friend's coworker,
Yep.
and then I had a jar when I was hexing my ex, and so yeah, I very much kind of just go with the flow and follow my intuition of like, how is the best way to fuck this person up?
Oh, absolutely. It could be really simple. I told you, I don't know, maybe the beginning of when we started this podcast, of this little jinx that I think it was very effective. I was at a friend's, I was at a party, and the person who's throwing the party, their apartment, said something very nasty about me. I did not confirm if this person actually said it about me, but it came from it came from someone that I trusted very, very much. And I got really mad. So, and I was also drunk. So what I did was I pissed in the, I went into their bathroom, into the master suite, into their bathroom. I pissed in the toilet. I took some of the pissy toilet water and I drew some sigils on the floor. So like where your feet would go if you were sitting on the toilet.
Ooh.
So lo and behold, I found out that for like the next couple of days they had food poisoning. So it worked. I'm gonna say that it was me. I'm not gonna say that it was bad meat that was set on the table, that they were just like, or whatever. I thought it was because, give him a couple of days, he's probably hungover or whatever, or give him a couple hours, he's probably hungover or whatever. But it lasted like days, and I was like, cool. Like and it was really simple, and I was just really mad. I was just really annoyed and really pissed off. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna put some piss on his floor and like let him, just put, it was very effective. But I think it's really important for you to, like what you said, just work with what you have. There are disgusting things around it. Like, I was doing a curse rite last year, this really big curse rite, and it was at Francisco's apartment. And I had this whole spell written out. I was putting everything together, and like, how like when you're writing a spell, you think you have everything until you actually put it together, and you're just like, I don't have enough. Like, I want more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like we were walking, like I was just like walking around, and Franny has a cat. So Franny's cat kills a lot of bugs. So I was looking for bugs like in Franny's apartment, and also Franny's gross, so there's bugs everywhere. So I was like going behind the bookshelves. Franny found a dead spider. I found a couple of dead. Franny also collects like dead flies around their apartment. So that came in clutch. I love that. So yeah, like go around your apartment, like see if you can find like, just dead things, like just like, whatever. Cockroaches are a wonderful thing to add into a hex. I know that one of my friends actually was Burgundy, who told me that one of the hexes that she did was she knew that the person was allergic to cats, so they put a little bit of cat hair in the jar, and just to kind of irritate them a little bit. That was very successful. So yeah, you can definitely there's a lot of things that you can do using cloves. Using guava leaves are very effective, because when you burn them, they stink so bad. I don't know if you've ever burned
You think
guava
they
leaves.
stink?
They stink. Oh my
It just
god.
feels similar to sage for me.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, guava leaves stink. I hate the way guava leaves are extremely potent purifiers, because they smell so bad. That's how
Hmm.
I see it. Oh my gosh.
I never thought they smelled that bad.
Oh my god, I hate. Serves you right, demon. Well, that's not true, because I think they're gross. So it's just me. I'm the demon.
She's the bad energy.
Yeah, I'm the villain. Um, but yeah, so I've used guava. I've used guava to purify, and also but also using the stems and the leaves of roses is a really great tool and good spiritual ally for hex work. So whenever I do an offering of roses, I always keep the trimmings, because they're very, very effective. And also burning the leaves is a very great purifier, and also great for hex work. And using
Mm.
rusty nails
Mm-hmm.
is always very effective. If you can't use if you don't know, or if you can't find rusty nails, just use a nail. Things like that. If you can, tag lock is very helpful. So
Tag looks are great. Oh my god.
getting
So the
someone's
person
hair. Oh, go
the
ahead.
person I'm doing baneful shit on, like, I'm like, fuck, how do I get a personal concern of theirs? And the other day they left their water bottle out, and it's like a hydro flask, and the spout was up. So while they were off doing something else, I just grabbed some tissue and wiped down the spout. And while it's still very minimal DNA, it's DNA nonetheless that helps to tag lock that person.
That's brilliant. That's a genius idea. Love that idea. Yeah, so getting someone's saliva, getting someone's hair, nail clippings, that's also very effective. Um, and if you're into piss play, get their piss.
There you
Um,
go.
so yeah, but then on the other side of that, what is some blessings or lighter work that you do in regards to your practice?
Mm. I would say limpias, particularly. I mean, there's the Wi-Fi limpia that I mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but particularly using smoke, so burning either of these singularly or in a combination: frankincense, copal, myrrh, benzoin, dragon's blood. I love to cleanse with smoke, be it a space or myself, because I feel like because it's air, it just really gets into all those different crevices. Huh?
Oh,
Um, and so I love using smoke. I actually have this wonderful, wonderful product, y'all. If you don't follow Aconite Conjure on Instagram, please do. They have a product line called the Dark Star, and it comes in an oil, a powder, or as an amulet. I have all three. And
of course you do.
and what I love about it is that not only is it super protective, but it also automatically sends back anything that's sent your way. So if it protects you
Mm-hmm.
from something, it's also going to act as a return to sender. And so the powder's awesome because the instructions say that if you sprinkle it over some incense and burn that and blow the smoke over someone, not only does it act as like a limpia of just cleansing them of everything, but also returns all that energy back. So it's both, again, both the light and the dark, the light of cleansing that person of all ills and mal de ojo or what have you, and the act of returning that back to wherever it came from. I don't give
Right.
a fuck if someone gave me mal de ojo unintentionally. That's your energy to keep, not
Right.
mine. Um,
Right.
and so that's like my go-to is smoke cleansing, and also just like really sincere from the heart prayer. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying prayer can be the only magic you do, because I definitely feel like that can kind of start to um to lead down a lazy path. Again, not to say it's not powerful, but are you only utilizing prayer because it works, or are you only utilizing prayer because it's easy and you don't want to get out your comfort zone and try other things?
Yeah, do more. Come on.
Yeah, so but all that to say, praying the rosary sincerely to your court, to a certain saint, to Mary, whatever, I found that to be very, very not enlightening as in the sense of like, oh my god, I'm enlightened, but like it feels like a burden's lifted off of me, because at the end of the rosary I'll kind of like say everything that I'm going through, and it's just nice to have like those words verbalized or emotions verbalized and given up to one of my spirits to then handle. Santa Muerte, I've had her have my back without me even trying. Like she's seen me get upset before, and with me having to do no work whatsoever, I've then found out that the person who perpetuated harm like either had a nightmare with her in it that was just like super ominous or whatever, what have you. So again, the importance of building up your relationships with your spirits in court also plays into to keeping you whole, healthy, and healed. Um,
Whole.
aw. But yeah. Oh, and limpias with candles. Like I love cleansing myself with a candle by rubbing it down my body to remove, and then a different candle up my body to bless. So again, that removal and then filling that void with some type of blessing or whatever I want to replace it with. That's a very not advanced, but that's something I learned that I didn't take into consideration before. If you're cleansing yourself, you're also creating a void that space can then be filled up with, either negative or positive energy vibrations, whatever you believe in. So always be sure that after a cleansing, you're bringing something into that space afterwards.
Right.
But
Never leave a hole unfilled.
exactly. But what about you, Voga? How do you?
Well, I think my favorite way to imbue blessing or to provide blessings is to craft. Like, I think crafting is so much fun, and making things
Mm,
for other people, and
yes,
on behalf of other people, especially like um I think you're actually wearing it, my rosary.
I am
Yeah, the rosary I
for our
crafted
patrons
you.
who can see.
Yeah, things like that I think is so effective in regards to just providing the blessings, providing the light that you want to give somebody. On the other hand, though, you can do the same thing if you wanted to lay something. If you wanted to lay darker work, lay hexes on someone, you could actually craft them something. I think that's really, under false
Hmm.
pretenses. I think that's actually really cool. I never actually thought of doing that.
That's why you should befriend your enemies, y'all.
Yeah, under false pretenses, craft them something for them to carry around with them. That sounds so much more long term. It sounds like a really cool idea if you actually craft something in with an intention to like hurt them or whatever, and you make a duplicate and you bury it under the earth so it has more of like a long term effect.
Mm,
Like bury it somewhere really dark and really dank, somewhere, so, and then just like use that as kind of like a beacon, to channel really yucky energy, you know what I mean? And they can carry this energy with them all the time. Like, what if like you gifted someone a pair of shoes that they really, really liked, and you laid work on the shoes, you know what I mean? And you kind of, what if you like took a picture of the shoes and then you put, drew some sigils behind it, and then you
hmm.
buried it under the earth, and those shoes are now forever cursed. I mean, I think that's a really cool idea. Anyways, so yeah, so crafting things, imbuing those with blessings, like making like little knot bracelets for people is something that I've done before. If someone's going on a trip, I'll give them an amulet or something, like a little jar or something that they can carry with them, or a sigil they can put in their suitcase, to prevent theft or to prevent loss, and to also imbue protection, things like that. Also, giving someone a prayer card, I think, is a really great way to imbue blessings to someone, or to provide
Hmm.
blessings onto someone. And yeah, I really like the idea of praying on behalf of someone. I think that's something that I don't think that's something that you should just be like endorsing to people's like pray on behalf of people, because that's something that the church likes to do. um and also it's like, thank you, but like I got it, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like I also believe in like consent at the same time. It's like, don't pray for someone unless they ask for it. um I think informed consent's important when it comes to throwing good things or bad things at some oh not bad things, that's not true, but throwing good things at someone. I think informed consent is important. Like, Rye will tell me all the time when they're going through something, they will tell me, is like, can you please light a candle for me and say a prayer? I'm like, of course I can. So it's one of those things. I know there's like a little bit of like, that's a little bit of a reach, like pray for people that you care about without them having to ask, like, that's okay, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's not a big deal. But at the same time, it's like, if it's like a bigger thing, like helping someone find the house, it's like, is it okay if I light a candle for you so you can find this house, easy or whatever? Then yeah, like, do something, do stuff like that. What are some materials that you like to I mean, you just mentioned, like, you like using smoke, but
Mhm.
and fire, but like, materials that you like to use in regards to like blessing work, or more light work.
Holy water for sure. Holy water is
Absolutely.
always a go-to.
That was like the first thing
Um,
in my head was holy water.
Florida water for those who don't feel comfortable for using holy water. I will say one thing I've learned to do is to imbue Florida water with prayer or blessing the bottle in and of itself, because at the end of the day, these are mass manufactured items that I've come to realize don't always necessarily hold any inherent magic within itself. Maybe a little bit because of all of the belief in what these products could do, even for
Mm-hmm.
people who don't bless them. But if you really want to supercharge something like Florida water, say your own personal prayers into it, or even because it's alcohol based, add your own herbs, which I have yet to do, but have been thinking about adding your own herbs into the Florida water and letting it soak and absorb that both energetically and the scents and everything, and then strain it. And now you have Florida water imbued with actual floral properties
Yeah,
of herbs.
that's a cool idea.
But yeah, holy water is my go-to because at least in the Catholic tradition, it's believed that it both simultaneously cleanses and blesses whatever it's sprinkled upon or area that it's scattered upon. And it's super easy to anoint someone with, if you just want to
Mm-hmm.
sprinkle some on them or coat it in your hands and, run your hands over that person, or with consent, of course, or like outside of their aura. What else do I rely on? Oh, oils. Different types of spiritual oils. Again, both for anointing myself and others. Um, you were asking for how I bestow blessings, right? Was that the
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Or
any things that you use, or any techniques that you use to do so.
Yeah, and then again, remembering that the sign of the cross is a form of
Yeah.
invocation or evocation. So
Mm-hmm.
like I'll consistently make the sign of the cross over other people, things, areas, myself. Because again, if you feel like you're lacking supplies, remember that all that power can be found in yourself too. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are really firmly with faith making the sign of the cross over something with the intention to bless, you will be doing so. Um,
Absolutely. There is this belief that I have just within myself. I with the risk of sounding ableist, which I really don't want to do. Um, but this is also something that that's very close to my practice, is my hands. My hands are like my favorite tools to use when it comes to blessing. Um, and like I said, I don't want to sound ableist, but if you are able to use your hands effectively, um, my hands are something that I use very, very often if I don't have tools around me. And there's something that I do in regards to, touch and intimacy, that's like a rub on a back to comfort somebody could potentially be a really effective spell, if you really have the intent is really strong. So if someone's like, pouring their heart out to you because they're having a really tough time and they're seeking comfort, and just like a little rub on the back, or like a touch on the neck, or like, wiping a tear away from someone's face, it's a very effective spell if you're mindful of it. You can actually use those techniques to actually bestow blessings onto those people. It's like, this will pass. Let this pass. Let this moment pass, so that we can you can move forward and bring forth blessings, more blessings.
mhm, mhm.
So yeah, like, when you were talking about, using the sign of the cross, or any sort of movement with your hands, my hands are very, very useful in that regard.
Yeah, what came to mind when you were mentioning like rubbing someone's back, like at least when I'm doing that for someone, like I'm realizing I almost always am moving my hand in a clockwise
Yeah,
manner. And
yeah.
in terms of witchcraft, like and providing comfort, it's like trying to give that
Or up and
love,
down. I
or up and
also tend to
down.
do up and
Yeah,
down, right?
and kind
So
of getting
like,
like energy stimulating.
up and down could also kind of be like a wiping away, right? It could look like you're wiping something away, or like, shooing something away, something that you want to kind of rid someone of. So if you're mindful of these things, touch can be a very, very effective spell. But yeah, you're right. That whole clockwise kind of motion, if you're like aware of it and you're actively thinking about bestowing blessings on someone, you can use that very, very effectively. Like, that matters, y'all. That really does matter. And if you're intimate with somebody, using your hands in your intimacy to bestow blessings upon your relationship or upon that person, especially if you're working within the currents of sex magic, very effective. Very, very, very effective.
Yeah, or like even a lot of Christians will say grace before a meal, right? And when you're saying grace, you're asking the food to be blessed. You're actually asking yourself and for the food to be blessed. And so when I'm cooking, especially cooking for other people, I'll bless the food because whether or not I let those other people know, like I like to think that spiritual courts will handle it. If they don't want that person to receive a blessing, they won't. But otherwise, if it's coming from good intention, then they will.
Sure.
That when they eat that meal, not only is it a food my love language and how I share my love with other people, but then they're also getting that blessing from the food as well.
Oh yeah, let me just say something. When I went to go visit San Francisco, Rye really knows where to eat. I'm telling you, Rye knows food. Rye knows food well. So yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from when it comes. And also, I love to cook. I love. There's this moment that when you're cooking for somebody, because I like to cook mostly because I like to see people's reaction and how great of a cook I am. Because I'm actually a pretty great cook. That is a magical moment for you to feed someone, to bring forth nourishment, and
Mm-hmm.
to bring forth something that someone needs in their body. That is a very effective spell. I mean, there's a whole branch of witchcraft and magical practices that dwells in the kitchen, and there's a reason for that. It's very powerful magic, and I think that that's something that I don't actively really think about, because most of the time when I'm cooking, I'm hungry, you know what I mean.
Right.
So like I'm not so super active and like aware when I'm cooking, but I have before.
Mhm.
Usually it's afterwards, you know what I mean, when I actually bless the food itself. But imbuing the magic, especially because you're constantly working with botanical allies, plant allies, when you're cooking.
Mhm.
Also, like, Filipino food is heavy on the vinegar, and the vinegar is extremely purifying.
Oh yeah.
So that's something that could be incorporated into your practice, is what is. And also, that's extremely cultural. Bringing forth the cultural foods of your ancestry is incredibly powerful. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
The one dish that I know how to make for my family that I
Chicken adobo, are you gonna say chicken
yes.
adobo?
Oh god. But the thing is, like, I just enjoy it every time, and like every
Yeah,
time I make it for someone, I've never had anyone complain about it. And I just really wish you ate chicken so I could make it for you because like I've
I
made
know.
cauliflower adobo, and it's just not the same. Like it tastes good, but it's just not. It's just not the
No, it,
same.
it isn't the same. I understand. I would probably be absolutely delicious. It would probably be fucking fire. But yeah, it needs to be chicken. It needs to be chicken, or it needs to be pork to be adobo. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Because when I was growing up, pork adobo was my favorite. That was always
Mm.
my
My
favorite.
dad just made me. So I just visited my family last weekend, and my dad made some pork adobo for me. And oh god,
Oh
so good.
God.
I think I prefer chicken, but I still delicious.
Oh my gosh. Any of our Filipino audience that might understand where my favorite Filipino food of all time is my mom's humba. Have you ever had humba before?
No, what is that?
Oh my God. It's a lot like adobo, but it's not the same. It doesn't taste the same. It's a little bit sweeter,
Mm,
okay, and it has anise in it. It's pork. It's more on the side of like it's not a stew like adobo can be, because adobo can be really saucy, right?
hmm
But there are also there are some parts of the Philippines that have a dry adobo, which I don't like that much. I like
Same.
the sauce. I like
The sabao. Mm.
the sabao needs to go on the rice. Oh my God.
Yes.
God
I like
damn.
my rice to be drowning in that sauce. Are you kidding me?
I know it needs to be, and you gotta sop it all up. Ooh,
Mm.
god damn. Um, but humbat has like a more has like a thicker consistency. Like the sauce is thicker. It's more of like it tastes more like a short rib.
Mm.
Like a short
hmm
rib stew almost. Um, and it's, oh my god, it's absolutely incredible. And my mom is not a good cook because she doesn't like cooking, like she doesn't enjoy it, but this is the one thing she's really fucking good at making, and she makes it all the time, and I can never fucking eat it because it's made of pork, and I don't eat pork. I know,
Ah.
it's so sad. So many Filipino foods I can't eat because everything is some sort of meat, you know. But
I haven't looked too much into like vegetarian or vegan Filipino dishes.
well, I'm not vegan. I'm pescatarian, so all of the fish stuff I can eat no problem.
See, I don't eat fish like that. So.
Oh God, I love fish. I can all day, every day, which is basically my life anyway. I eat fish almost every single day, almost, not all the time, but we just started talking about food. Anyways,
I know. Food is magic.
Food is magic. I agree. That would be a really cool topic. Food
Oh, hell
magic.
yeah.
You know. Anyways,
talk about one of the same 3 dishes I cook.
well, I can talk about the other 60 dishes that I cook. So
Okay, we get it. You cook.
I do, and I'm very good at it. And I never got a chance to cook for you, which is
I was just gonna say you haven't fed me yet.
I know, it's such a bummer. It's such a bummer. We didn't have any time because someone decided to go back to school. That was the
Okay.
reason why. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? Well, I did, and I don't regret it.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna bypass this conversation because it's making me feel really uncomfortable. But anyways, so the duality of light and dark is in my opinion very necessary when working within magical currents. Both of those currents are extremely powerful, and you need to be able to understand both to be able to work in both.
I would argue even that it's not even just in my opinion. I just believe it's a matter of fact of nature. Like,
Yeah.
In terms of ebbs and flows, you don't get to have one without the other.
And you know, dark is not a bad word. I think that's something that we need to also address, is that things that traditionally are more darker or spookier or scarier, or that's just part of your conditioning. Okay, we need to understand that there are people and aspects of everyday life that need to be respected and need to be heard, and you know, dark-sided stuff is not it's not a bad word. It really isn't. It really isn't. It's just it's different. It's just a different, and I don't like saying this word. It's a different energy. It really is, though. But I think that's a good placeholder word for what I'm talking about. It is a different energy, and it's really important for you to understand what it feels like and how to work within it.
Absolutely. You can read all you want about how to swim, but unless you actually go out there and start practicing how to swim, then you're going to drown. Same thing with dark magic, or sorry, I don't like using that term. Same thing with baneful magic and working in those currents and energies. You can read all about it, which is great, but it does take some dabbling so you can either, one, know how to work it well when the time comes, and two, so you know how to recognize it. So if your practice focuses more on healing and protection, like my practice, then at least you know how to undo it and reverse it.
And it also goes to, you're going to meet people who work in currents like demons and devils and those kind of things, and trust me, when you meet these people, regardless of what their practice is, they're probably way better than the people that you go to church with. And I'm speaking from personal experience, y'all. These are some of my best friends, and I'm telling you right now, they have brought me so much more enlightenment and so much more fulfillment than the church has ever done, than my family has ever done, you know. So it's important. The duality is very, very important to be a part of.
All right. Thank y'all for another episode of the Red Text Podcast. And just to remind y'all, our Patreon is new and updated. So the tiers have been updated. There's 3 instead of 4. And the benefits have switched around as well. So if you haven't had the chance to check that out yet, we highly recommend it. You can get things such as early access to our videos and audio formats of our episodes before they're released to the general public. You can get early access to Voga's limited edition artwork as they release it.
Oh, which, by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you. The first one is going to be sent out. Y'all have probably already, by the time you listen to the episode, probably already received it, but it's going to be a print of Adrian's artwork, the logo. That's going to be the first print that's going out.
Oh, hell yeah.
And stickers. We made stickers.
Awesome merch. I'm so excited for that.
I know, it's going to be rad. It's gonna be super fucking rad.
But yeah, check out the Patreon. Just simply Google Patreon, the red text, or the red text coven, and it should be the first thing that pops up. And I believe we also have links to it in our bios. Or
It's
do
in
you?
our link tree and yeah, on our Instagram. It's in there.
Perfect. But yes, this has been another lovely Unholy Communion. Again, I'm your co-host Ry, aka the Mestizo Mystic on Instagram, or just at Mestizo Mystic on Twitter.
And my name is Voga, and I am Voga Illumiscente on Instagram, and we will see you guys on our next Unholy Communion.
Bye.
Bye.